All right, I see Soham has started the recording. So that is my cue to get things moving forward. I love his little passive whatever. But all right, so hello everyone. You all know me. My name is Brenda. I'm one of the trainers here at Coach Transformation Academy. And I'm also your facilitator here for our session tonight. And guess what? We've had so many wonderful speakers here for our Transformational Tuesdays. We've had David Clutterbuck. We've had Susie Skinner. We've had Latanya Wilkins. We've just had so many wonderful people that have come here and given their time so that we can all just learn from them. And how awesome is that? So guess what? Tonight is not any different. So with us this evening, we have Lorenza Clifford. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, but she's got so much to share with us tonight that I'm not going to take up a whole bunch of time, right? So let me just tell you a little bit about her. Tonight, she's going to be talking to us about accounting for reality in coaching. So what she is saying is there's two really highly relevant themes of interest when we're talking about the profession of coaching, climate coaching and supervision. So she linked these together to talk about how we account for reality in coaching. Now, Lorenza has her master's in occupational psychology. She also established Coach Change Limited in 2003, which is an executive coaching business developing leaders and coaches internationally. And I just asked her where she lives, so I can tell you she lives in Hampshire in the UK with her family, and she works with people internationally from her home, building technology with relational work to achieve strong outcomes for her clients. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Lorenza because I think we're going to start with the poll, right, Lorenza?
Indeed, absolutely. So we have a little poll just to gather a little bit about you, who are here to join me on this little journey this evening. So if you'd like to take part in this poll, that'd be fantastic. It will just give us a sense of who's here, and it will give you a sense of each other as well, which will be fantastic. So are you able to set the poll running?
Soham, how are you here?
Yeah. Yes, Frenda, can you try that? Because it's disabled on my end.
Oh my, you know what? The great thing about technology doesn't always work the way we want it to. So give me 1 second and let me see what I can do to help. Lorenza, are you also co-host?
I am co-host, yeah, but I don't see any poll.
All right, you know what?
That was interesting.
You know, that's the joy of technology, right? So
yeah,
let me see.
So where's it gone?
Get my screen to go back to full screen. There we go. All right. All right, so I am going to launch the poll.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Brenda.
So we really would love for all of you to please participate in the poll, and I'm going to launch it now for about, 2 minutes, Lorenza? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, 2 minutes will give everybody just enough chance to just answer the questions. So the first question is, have you heard of the area of coaching known as climate coaching or sustainable future coaching? It's quite a new area, so we just wondered to what extent are people aware of it? And your answers are coming in. Okay.
All right, we're going to give you guys
That's great.
Few more minutes, and then we're going to let Lorenza go ahead and get started.
There's 2 more questions, so.
Okay, so I'm going to end this one. Is that okay?
Thank you.
So we have 84% of our answers now.
So 81% saying no, it's a new area.
No.
So that's interesting. Yeah. So that's something that will be perhaps of interest then tonight. And
All
the
right.
second question.
Second question. I'm going to go ahead and end this one. And let's see if I can get to the second one. There's the result of the first one. So one is the second one here.
Yes, it is. It's the another poll.
All right. Let's
Poll
see.
2.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. All right, here we go.
So have you ever had an experience of coach supervision? And, as it's part of many training packages, I imagine many people will have, but not everybody perhaps. And it may be different in different areas of the globe. So it's a very interesting question to understand who's here with us tonight. At the moment, it's about even.
That's interesting answers, actually.
Yeah. Okay, that seems to have settled down.
All right, are you ready for me to switch to the next one?
Yeah, okay, that's great. So it's about 50-50 on this one.
Interesting. All right, let's do that one.
And the final one is about regular coaching supervision.
There we go.
So, to what extent do people here have regular supervision? We're not here to judge, we're just wondering what the experience is, where you are, and whether you have taken part in that as a regular thing at the moment.
And it's interesting that your last question had 50-50. And now we're moving toward whether regular supervision.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a lot of learning this evening.
So this is an interesting thing. Good. Just a few more to come in. Anybody else going to answer? Perhaps I can clarify more about it as well as we go through this evening. This helps me to understand who I'm talking with as well. So I've got a sense of where people are at right now in their coaching journey and what they have and haven't experienced as ways of developing so far. So, you know, this is a really good reality check for me at the beginning of this session. Thank you very much. Let's end this poll.
All right.
So it's on 87% no, people mainly don't have regular supervision in this group here this evening. So that will be interesting. I may get some interesting questions and challenge at the end, and I really do welcome that. I'd like people to be completely honest with, you know, where they're coming from and what they're seeing. Because although I might be a proponent of coaching supervision, not everybody may be, and I'd be interested to hear your experiences and your questions from wherever they come. Okay, thank you. So my development journey, and can we stop sharing the poll? If we can move to the slide now, that would be great. I've got it as sharing on my screen. Can you all see the first slide, accounting for reality and coaching? Franda, perhaps you can tell me if you can see that on your screen.
I think so. I think we're up now.
Great. Okay. So just going to move that. So my coaching development journey began about, well, more than 2 decades ago, and it has really included many different stages of learning about the psychology behind approaches, stages of learning that have been about honing skills and applying different techniques, and then reflecting on how and when best to apply them, and learning more to hone my intuition as a coach as well. So in the last 12 years, I've been working reflectively between sessions with my coaching supervisors, and I've been synthesizing my own relational, approach, which is a kind of co-constructive approach with the person that I'm working with, and is very much developmental. So starting from where people are and seeking to work with them around what the next step of their development might be. So I've spent several years developing coaches and transferring my own passion for the art and science of coaching to others. And the approach that I've come to is sort of encompassing the systemic and the human relational perspective. So that's the kind of philosophy that I have behind my coaching. And quite often I see it as stepping back and seeing the wood and stepping in to appreciate the trees. So I hope that this is an idea that translates. But we'll see as we go. Perhaps we'll get some questions. But you know, I see coaching very much as a process where at times you're stepping back and looking at the whole of what is, whilst at the other times you're really stepping in to appreciate the trees. And there's that lovely notion of shuttling awareness that Miles Downey introduced, which helps you as a coach to navigate when you should be stepping back and when you need to be stepping in. So my idea, just to summarize how I see the role of a coach, is in these three areas. So first of all, I see it as accounting in three timeframes for what is. In the past, we reflect on the past, we inquire, we acquire information on what has been, and we apply curiosity to uncover the different valued aspects and perspectives of learnings from the past. Whereas in the now, in the second time frame here, we're accounting for what is in the here and now. We're very much being present with everything that is, including the feelings, including the agenda of the client that's been brought into the room, including their context and their worldview, and accounting for those aspects in the present with them. And then there's an aspect that's about the future, this sort of inspiring envisioning with your coachee about what might be, what could become, and empowering choicefulness about and creativity with the future in order to meet people's needs, to be aligned with what they're valuing. And this is perhaps a particular role of the coach, but it's one that I've come to in my third decade of experiences in coaching. And that's informed not least by the career coaching that I've done with people who've perhaps discounted what they care about, what their heart's work is for too long, and done some damage to their well-being or to their mental health. It's informed by the transition coaching that I've done in organizations where aspiration to be in the elite is everything, or where the profit motive is not questioned or is held above all else. And it's informed by coaching in organizations during the credit crunch period, where the many discounts of reality led to the bubble burst and the resulting crash in markets and in trust. And these sort of areas have culminated recently in some more tunnels of reality around how we can view our climate, how we can view our context, where the twin areas of climate and societal crises are leading us to realize that our focus on profit has led to a sort of over-exploitation of people and resources, and that we can no longer continue to discount things this way. So all of these experiences have one thing in common, which is our normal human learning process, leading us to give too much focus and too much value in too narrow an area, creating this sort of reality tunnel that I talk about. So reality tunnels, they're normal, but they're problematic. And we'll go on to talk a little bit about this. When we focus in on something with our coachees, we do lose sight of the wider perspective. And we need to be mindful of that and return to it at later stages. And when we simplify, we lose something of the whole. And these are normal human learning processes. We simplify in order to transmit information, in order to communicate. I'm simplifying right now a whole lot of stuff that I've learned and thought about, but simplifying down just to some parts in order to transmit what are the key things for us to focus on tonight here. And in all of these simplifications, we always lose something. And so there is a temptation that we can later think we have a handle on something that's difficult or complex, where we're only using our simplified view. And so I suppose what I'm really encouraging people to do is to, when they're working alone, to see that the way that they're working might need to be widened, to be broadened, and to find people to work with that will help them. So where you're working in a silo away from other parts of a connected system, you know, it can give us tunnel vision that's hard to break out of. So collaboration, diversity, open-hearted dialogue, these are really great ways of breaking out of tunnels into the light within organizations. And indeed, with coaches, you know, the critical reflection that you do in coaching supervision practice can really allow us to break out of reality tunnels and into the light and make sure that our practice is safer for our clients. So as an aside, I'd just like to mention that there are so many human biases that have been named these days, that they are really worth studying, even in a simplified way. So if you simply Google human bias, there's a human bias codex, for example, which bring up a rather beautiful image that names all the different challenges to us as humans seeing reality. And we can work our way through understanding these, but it doesn't stop us from falling into them. So we have to continue to be working with others to help ourselves to see things in a true light. So I am passionate about helping coaches to look at ourselves through this lens and be willing to face the learning there. For example, I'm aware I've created a beautiful set of slides using landscapes that are very meaningful for me, but they could be otherworldly to you. The metaphors are so potent for me in these images of looking at things in detail or stepping back and seeing the wider picture. They may not be quite so potent for you, or they may be highly challenging for you in ways I did not expect. So I'm just going to invite you to spend a little bit of time stepping back and looking at how things are in your world. In the coaching that you've done, looking at your coaching, I'm going to invite you to spend 15 minutes in groups of 3 in a coaching process, so using everything you've learned about coaching so far, just in having a conversation together to allow yourselves to look at where you've come across reality tunnels with your clients so far. What helps you to work with what your client is discounting, and to notice what you are becoming aware of Where is your own scope of vision that could be widened? What might you need to become more aware of that's on the edge at the moment? And so a large section of this evening, this 15 minutes in groups of 3, will allow you to start to work personally on this issue of reality tunnels and where you might need to focus going forwards. So would you be able to start the breakout groups, please? Frenda, are there any questions in the chat before we actually break into that?
Not so far, no. So I think someone could go ahead and do the breakout room would be awesome.
Thank you.
So, are you with us? There we go.
You'll need to accept the request to join that is there if you're still in this room. There should be a dialog box that comes up inviting you to join the room. Please do go ahead and join and have a good conversation.
Those of you that can join, please go ahead and join. And if we have some coming in during this time, we will add you into the room.
Still a couple of people here. Shanti, you may need to accept a request to join a room. Anuba, you will also need to accept your request. It'll be there underneath something else probably.
Hello, Dr. Nuba. You are assigned into room 3. So you should have a dialog box like we do in our class to be able to go ahead and join. Because right now Bingo's in the room all by himself. All right, let's see what we can do about that. I think I will just, let me see, yeah, and then, right, good job, Anuba, you got there. Sophia, I assigned you into room 3, so just go right in. I'm gonna put it up. And what was the time on this, Lorenza? I'm sorry, you're muted.
15 minutes to give them a good
15
chunk of
minutes.
time to have a conversation because their experience is far more important than mine.
All right, awesome.
I'm just going to broadcast a message with the questions in again.
Aisha, Lorenza, are you able to join your room?
I think Shanti may have gone to find a cup of coffee or something.
Actually, since it's 15 minutes, so I'm just gonna stop the recording for this amount of time and we'll start it back up when we come back.
So just to reiterate, I'm just inviting you to place in the chat your thoughts about what you're taking away from that conversation. What was important to you that you're holding on to from that conversation? The chat is probably going to explode at any moment with all your thoughts. I'm seeing a sweet approach, the incredible value of reflective spaces. Learned so much from my colleagues. Each person is unique, indeed. Thank you for sharing, those of you who are doing so. A visual image of light at the end of the tunnel, that a client may be able to see the light and may be orientating this way. We may help them to move in that direction. Indeed. Yes, so the tunnel may be a very important process, in fact, for a client to keep focused and to be moving in that way. Sometimes our tunnels protect us from too much that would overwhelm us otherwise. Thank you, Sue. Is anybody else sharing? So we'll take that for now and move on. So thank you for your comments. I really appreciate your sharing. So I include coaches and the coaching profession here as capable of falling into reality tunnels, some of which are helpful and some of which are not, or perhaps rather are helpful in some ways, but in some ways are not. So we're not immune from these. Professor Tatiana Bakirova of Oxford Brookes University recently gave a talk that was entitled "Beautiful Ideas That Can Make Us Ill." And in this talk, she named several ideas in coaching that can be taken too far, where we perhaps then discount their appropriateness for the situation. And she cited Dunkley and also Illouz. Dunkley, the example Dunkley had was around aspiration, as an example where it can be taken too far and it can discount needs and well-being. I've certainly seen that myself, both in performance coaching, but also in career coaching, where people perhaps are aspiring to something that they then find to be beyond them in the context that they're in. But keep striving towards that until they burn out. And Illouz had the example of commitment, where committing to others to too great an extent discounts our own needs and our own preferences that are actually important to how we become motivated to do the work. So that's another interesting example. Tatiana explores examples of her own that she would have coaches guarding against, of taking too far. Positive psychology was one of the beautiful ideas she named, as she finds that it ignores sometimes what is in the shadow side, what is negative that must be faced, which can be problematic if not faced. And mindfulness, as when this is taken too far, there's no action. And oftentimes action is required for well-being. So, there needs to be a balanced approach to these things. Given the organization that you're working with, the third example that she gives is transformational coaching, which is, she finds it places the coach in the role of a magician and perhaps sets up unrealistically high expectations of results. And so when it's not balanced, it can be too much. A beautiful idea that could make us ill, as she puts it. I'm sure that she has received pushback that appropriately applied, each of these ideas are highly effective. And her point in bringing them, perhaps in quite a controversial way, was really my point here too, that we need to develop a set of skills and an awareness of how our philosophy and how our approach might have a shadow side, so that we can be discerning in our application of our coaching. So the capabilities that you're finding on this page for coaches to nurture are important ones. So noticing discounts, what's ignored or left in the shadows, and being able to see it when we're in a reality tunnel and to question how helpful that might be at this moment. Informing ourselves about other systemic perspectives that can be explored. Actually opening those up and exploring them with our clients sometimes can be really fruitful in helping us to see what's being put to one side for now, and actually might need to be brought into equations. Demonstrating the consequences of what has been given too little attention is a key capability, being able to show where the blind spot might bite us. Uncovering the underlying assumptions and values and the multiple self perspectives that we might have. That notion that she brings, it's actually one of Paul Lawrence's ideas of each person has multiple self perspectives, not a single one. And that when we explore that multifaceted self, we uncover important underlying and assumptions and values that perhaps are not center stage, but are important in the person's makeup. And then bringing those into the conversation, bringing them into the light, can really help a person to move forwards. Opening hearts and minds to what else might be there yet to be seen. What are the things that are on the edges of our scope of awareness currently? Recently, the areas of our biases have been brought to light. There's a lot of attention around this in the area of race and discrimination. And I think understanding more about how, for example, for me with my whiteness can be seen, my privilege, how that creates my own reality tunnel, and how I can help myself to break out of it in ways that are helpful to others, is an area for me that I'm on the edge of exploring and have yet to explore some more. Diffusing shoulds and shame responses. These are critical capabilities for coaches to nurture if they want to work with the edges of people's reality tunnels. And bringing active hope and stubborn optimism. These are current themes in the area of climate, where people have become sort of unable to move forwards, unable to feel helpful as coaches, perhaps. The sowing the seeds of active hope and stubborn optimism is a crucial skill for a coaching supervisor. And engaging creativity around regenerative future vision. This is the idea that if we engage our creativity, then we can find future ways that actually regenerate our ecosystems and work with a much fuller picture. These require action orientation and appropriate urgency, given the situation with climate change at the moment. I hope you have all paid some attention to the IPCC report and have in your awareness the appropriate urgency of acting to create a regenerative future vision with clients. I am aware that climate change is perhaps not on everybody's radar at the moment. And so developing these capabilities in relation to climate and coaching is perhaps an area for the future. But reflective practice and paying attention to our own practice with gentle criticism are the ways mentioned by Tatiana as being important. Seeing ourselves, seeing our practice as something that's developing as we go forwards and continuing to develop as you are here is very important. So the relationship between coach and coachee is really influential. When we are in genuine contact with one another, the course of our conversation changes the course of activity in the brain. It strengthens some synapses and creates new areas of activity and increases the access and associations between different areas of the cortex. So don't underplay your role by staying in the shadows. It's not possible to be neutral. You're a human being, and when you're in contact with another human being, that does shape things. Instead, invite your client to see with their different many selves rather than with a single aspect, and use what you can see with your different many selves to look at the issues from all angles that could be meaningful. You never know which angle is going to be the important one. That angle may come from you, or it may come from within your coachee. Murdoch and Miriam Orris of the Coaching Supervision Academy, they maintain that who you are is how you coach, and who you are is how you supervise too. And I'm from that school of thought that as coaches and coach supervisors, we are often using ourselves as instrument. And so reflecting on and becoming critically aware of which aspects of ourselves are invited to the fore by particular clients or particular organizations or particular sectors, that can really help us to do a better, more rounded job of accounting for the many facets of reality. There's the lovely quote there from Murdoch: "The personhood of the practitioner, our humanity matters, as does our maturity, our open-heartedness, and our generosity of spirit." I love the way she speaks. It's a fantastic voice that she has for the relationship of coaching and coaching supervision. So what exactly is coaching supervision? I believe that not many of you have a full sense of this from your experience, so I'll go into that next. And just allow us to pause for a moment and stand back and look at what is the idea of coaching supervision. So coaching supervision is a professional developmental relationship for understanding how you're looking and thinking, and how you're developing your coaching philosophy, and how you're preparing the ground for your work with your coachees. It's for recognizing what seed you may need to sow, or how something may need to be nurtured differently in order for the client in their ecosystem to flourish regeneratively for the future. So it encompasses quite a lot. I sometimes wish that I had a way of making it trip off the tongue a little bit more, making it a little bit shorter, but then it wouldn't encompass as much as it needs to, and we're back down the reality tunnel. So at its base are the 4 functions that we're attending in coaching supervision: to the quality of our coaching, to the resourcing of the coach, to developing ourselves, but also to the developmental aspects of this work with our clients, and to the system, because if we're not encompassing that in all the other 3 parts, then we are really missing some important aspects of human reality. Humans work through systems. We don't work in some sort of void alone. It is very rare for human beings to be able to do their work except through communication with others, through contact with others. And so this systemic function encourages us to really look at and notice our context and how we're interacting with our ecosystem, without which we can't survive or flourish. And the link through to climate change from here, I would now state in a different way than I would have before, because 11 professional bodies for coaching around the globe have come together in a historic joint global statement on climate change. And I hope you may have had a look at it in preparation for this evening. And it places two responsibilities on members of all the 11 bodies, although there are several bullet points that make it clear, but there are two new responsibilities. One is to bring the climate crisis to the awareness of our clients where appropriate to the contract and to the client, and to account for where we might be part of the problem. And secondly, to invite clients to take responsibility in their responses to the climate crisis, to become part of the regenerative future rather than part of the problem. So how do we use our relationship? So our coaching relationships can be learning and active hope. They can bring learning and active hope instead of shoulds and shame responses. This is one really important way of bringing these areas into the light by enabling people to admit where things are not quite how we would have them, without the judgment perhaps that might be incumbent with that. So we can alleviate the feelings of shoulds, what we should have done or should be doing, and our shame responses, and instead look creatively forwards. We can notice narrowings of perspective that lead us into these reality tunnels, and we can invite a much more realistic broadening of scope. We can increase awareness in a way that naturally encourages redecisioning around extractive or exploitative survival habits without any explicit directional work. And we can provide safe spaces for planning and rebuilding regenerative habits of responding and encompassing the ecosystem needs, which flow from the exploitation of our responsibility for unintended consequences and for our former, present, or future actions. We need to be aware of the consequences and then take the responsibility. It's those two parts. So in supervision, we engage together and pay attention to climate. We contract and explore rather than assume. We provide a safe container for considering different perspectives, for learning, and we look at the deeper developmental shifts that might be required. And these play out in the internal narratives that we employ and the events that we prioritize and the relationships we seek and the stories we tell and the metaphors and the symbols that we find meaningful. And returning to the reality tunnel theme, we might inquire and, you know, I would just allow you to notice for a moment those questions on the right. So climate change, do you care about it? It's a very simple question that can be asked with clients. You know, Peter Hawkins apparently asks this question and has recommended it to many as a door that people can enter that conversation through. It's not directional to say, I care about climate change in your contracting. You know, Mr. Client, do you care about climate change? Is it something that's going to be a part of our conversations? It's a simple question that can be asked. And what does it mean to you, this climate change? How is it going to affect you? You know, these kind of questions we may have avoided out of habit, or we may have avoided for specific reasons, but it's incumbent on us to ask questions like this now. And how might you respond regeneratively as an individual? How might you respond regeneratively as a professional coach? And we can ask this question, perhaps more simply, what are you going to do to your family? What would you like to do about it? What one thing could we do as a family? What about as a team or a system? These are simple, challenging questions that we each need to ask for ourselves and to each other to move forwards. In supervision, we do engage in these questions and pay attention to climate. And here is one of the types of questions that I might ask with my coachees. When coaches have been with me for a while and we've had a few sessions and we've looked at various areas, I might just ask, are there some doubts or anxieties or other feelings about applying the kind of approach that you do, which are just out of view or which you would rather keep out of view? And identifying the feelings as well as the areas of doubt with coaches to understand what it is that we're not exploring in our sessions so far, and to bring those into the light where we can look at them. So these thoughts and doubts and feelings, they're the source of development and an antidote to the reality tunnels. These questions are precisely what coaching supervision relationship is there to help you explore. I still take my concerns, my insecurities, my areas of confusion, my other feelings to my coaching supervisor. And the harder they are to admit to and to own up to, the deeper and more important the learning that's come from the work that we've done together on them. So I can thoroughly recommend taking these things to supervision. And so, in summary, I have brought together a couple of themes that are really relevant to today, to coaching in 2021 and beyond. Climate coaching is a brand new area. Coaching supervision is spreading. And I think that they come together because they are both about expanding beyond our reality tunnels, whilst recognizing how those have occurred. And exploring these tunnels and filling the voids with developmental actions is really helpful. Making coaching supervision valuable by taking the hard questions and the feelings that you hold and exploring those with somebody who's trained to do so can bring really important learning for the future and important learning for your practice as a coach. And by way of additional resources, I have put together sort of in these 3 headings. So I would encourage you to ask supervisors how they've been prepared to work with coaches around climate themes, and make sure that they're accredited with one of the signatories of the joint global statement on climate change. And above all, make sure that you engage in coaching supervision when you can, to seek out your reality tunnels and see how they might be affecting your client work. Climate Coaching Alliance is free to all coaches, wherever they are. They're focused on transforming practice and transforming our impact, and then transforming the profession as well. And through these positive shifts in human awareness, affecting wider system changes in the world towards a truly regenerative future. And your professional body may very well have events that you can join in with, that they might be planning for coaches as we go forwards, to think about your response to climate change and potential ecosystem collapses, and looking at how to move coachees forwards, as well as how to move coaches forwards. They may also have taster sessions for supervision, where you can take your work and explore what coaching supervision might bring to your practice. So I'd encourage you to take those up. The Association for Coaching runs those kind of sessions, and I volunteer for those. So I'm interested in what questions you might have. Over to you. Have there been questions in the chat? Please, Frenda.
We actually have just more comments than questions, and the comments are just about how people are enjoying the session. Newfound insights, truly inspiring, aspiration, often discounts well-being due to this watching. I love that. So yeah, so right now we haven't had any questions, but we have a little bit of time left. If anyone wants to put any questions in the chat, and if not, you see this information on the screen right now that you can also contact Lorenza directly. She has her email address here, as well as her website, and also talking about coaching supervision. So do we have any questions in our last couple of minutes together?
I'm finding it hard to hear you, Frenda. I'm afraid I've got a slight crackle on your line.
Yes, there
but
is.
I think I'm gathering what you said from reading along with you in the chat. But I'm not quite sure what your last question was to me, which may have been a question from you directly.
Well, I was actually asking, because we just have a few more minutes, and I was just asking if anyone has any questions, and if not, they can go to your webpage as well as the information that you have on the screen right now. So as we end, I will just say thank you to everyone for joining us. I look forward to you all joining us next week. Soham is putting some information in the chat where you can also see the videos of the session. And next week, please join us. We have Jedediah Alex Cole that will be coming to us talking about Brave Your Story. So I look forward to seeing you all next week. I see a lot of thank yous in the chat, and I thank you myself, Lorenza, for being with us this week.
And I'm thanking you too, and also to Harrison Soham for facilitating the session for us. But Frenda, it's been marvelous to have you to introduce me, and also to help with the facilitation of this session. It's been truly wonderful to meet you.
Great meeting you as well. And again, so we'll say good night, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is where you are. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Au revoir.
Bye bye.